Hi, everybody. So, we are so excited. We are here to talk about the final two episodes of Star Trek Discovery and to talk about the season as a whole now that it's finished. And my friend Tom is here to talk about it with me.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah. So, let's just dive into the first of these episodes, War Without the War Within. And this was an interesting episode. We were just super busy last week, and I felt like it was good to talk about them together in a way because it felt like kind of one big episode to me. The last two.
Yeah. It like the pilot. They kind of go together.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So it starts out with a lot of the Emperor Giorgio, the Terran version of Giorgio, and she's treating Saru as just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And
She's so awful in that episode.
yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
both. You just can't stand her.
yeah, and but they are trying to work with her in a way because now that they're in this 9-month timeline, they are trying to figure out how in the Terran world they defeated the Klingons.
Yep.
And she knows, and so that's why they're trying to kind of work with her, but she's obviously incredibly volatile. And so I don't know, it's an interesting dynamic. What do you think about this whole Giorgio kind of dynamic they have going on in these two episodes?
Yeah, actually, you say that she's kind of unreliable. Actually, she is perfectly reliable. She seems that way. She seems volatile. Like,
Uh-huh.
she could, go off the reservation any moment. No, she's on the reservation. It's just that the rest of the team are in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Starfleet has completely lost its way.
Well, she's, I guess, volatile in the sense of just being like volatile in the sense of like very angry and very like just a heated character that seems like it's always about to jump down in anyone's throat.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely very unsavory. Yeah. Like that.
Yes.
You can tell that. Um, uh, Lucy,
Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh. Excuse me. Yeah. You can tell that Michelle Yeoh was really having a good time chewing the scenery and being awful.
Yeah, I think so too. I think she's having a lot of fun with it, and I think that I think it's Doug Jones. I think is the actor plays Saru. He is just very good. I mean, with all that makeup that he has on, the special, for him to show so much the pain, I think is pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It would be so ghoulish to have this mother mentor figure,
Yeah.
turn into this nightmare monster creature. It just psychologically it's
So there's another plot line in this is, so we get Burnham. They try to convince Burnham to go and see Ash, who's had this surgery, and at first she says, "Is this an order?" And they say, "No, it's not an order." But so she refuses. She's not interested in seeing Ash at all. Because he tried to kill her, but she knows that it's Voq, but she's struggling. And
she still saw it was still his face, his voice, his hand on her throat.
Yeah. And so we get Cornwell and Sarek come on board, and we find out the Klingons have been brutal in this victory or conquest or whatever. They just killing, destroying bases with like 80,000 people on it, just being brutal. And so they're just in this desperate situation, and they are desperate to get this knowledge that Giorgio has. They develop this plan involving they have one last spore drive, and so they want to use it to go to this planet to be able to create more of the spore drives, and be able to
Basically, they need to refuel is essentially what it is.
Right. And so you have Cornwell meeting with Giorgio. Giorgio doesn't want to tell her anything, but she's kind of desperate. And Cornwell says, "I'm not even sure if we know how to get you back to your home. I'm not sure if we have the skills." But and she says, "But even if we did, we have a war to fight."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting situation, and there's just a lot of like little conversations in this episode. It's a really dialogue kind of based episode. You also have a conversation between Ash and Stamets. Killed his partner, and he's saying, having a hard time sort of forgiving him for that. What did you think of Ash in this episode?
No, he's in a tough spot. I really did feel for the guy, because he did those things and yet he kind of didn't. He sort of exists in this guilty but not guilty kind of space.
Yeah,
and it's kind of there is a similarity to the way that Michael also kind of existed in that space, at least. Well, sort of. She did a terrible thing for the right reasons, or what she felt were the right reasons.
Yeah. Well, and he still has, I think he says that he still has folks' memories, and he still has a little bit of him in him, right?
Sure. Yeah, and he knows what Voq knows, and yeah. Or knew.
So that's it's not like it's like a complete brain wipe after the surgery. Like, he's aware of what he did. He's aware of, I don't know, just all sides of it. So that's got to be devastating.
Yeah. It actually, Star Trek has done something similar before with a character where you kind of have two personalities in one body, or the different memories in one body. There's a species called the Trill who are symbiotic. So they have a small worm-like creature that can fit inside them. Like, they look basically like humans, but they've got spots on their heads, or on their heads that run down their body. And the symbionts, the little worm things, live like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, whereas the humanoids have a pretty average humanoid lifespan of about 100 years. So as one symbiont can pass from one to one host to another. So there's a character on Deep Space Nine who's one of these, and the captain calls her Old Man because he knew her when she was an old man. he knew the symbiont when it was inhabiting a man host, and was friends with that person. And yet, and both personalities persist in the same person. But anyway,
interesting. Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic that you have with Ash. It's got these two sides. It's sort of almost a Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing in a way, a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. But now he's just all Jekyll, but he feels bad for all the stuff that Hyde did. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, actually, I just watched Incredible Hulk, so I've got this on my mind. But like, how I'm picturing him like walking down the corridors with that sad piano music playing.
Yeah, that's a good comparison too. The Hulk. Emmett says to Ash, "Does it gut you? Does it sicken you?" And then he says, "Good. Maybe you're still human after all." That was a good moment.
Yeah, that was really well written, because it has both Stamets' indignation at what happened in it. Like, it carries that weight.
Yeah.
So it's just, oh well. So we know he's not just blowing it off, but at the same time, he's he's sort of acknowledging like I know it wasn't you, but it kind of was.
Yeah.
And like if you don't realize that, then there's something screwy with you. So yeah, so it's very loaded. It's a very
Yeah.
loaded line.
Well, and I feel for him because like one of my character flaws is I have a hard time like letting go of things, and I have a hard time. I'm somebody that can hold a grudge. It's one of my things I always work on.
Mhm.
And so I certainly something as horrible and painful as this and what Burnham is going through too, like it's just an emotion that I can definitely respond to. I would definitely have a very hard time forgiving Ash, even though I know that it wasn't him. I still it would I would very much struggle like they are.
Yeah, and I sympathize with it, but I also feel sadness because I know they're not being their best selves.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
fair.
and it's the same way I react to like whenever I see people talking or saying things, vengeful things about someone who's committed a crime. Like, you're so sure that you're right about this, are you? That's just kind
Yeah.
of that's kind of the way my character has been developing lately. Is that like I have some sympathy for the accused,
Uh-huh.
whether they did it or not. I always I would try to carry with me the thought that, but for the grace of God, there go I. Like
Yeah.
I'm not better inherently than they are. I don't know that in their situation I wouldn't have done exactly the same thing. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's really good. It's just an easy I mean that's why it's the hardest commandment of all, to forgive all. That's the
that's
hardest
right.
one.
Yeah.
So um anyway, so yeah, the Klingons, they have just been brutal to the Federation,
Hmm.
killing one base, 80,000 souls died. Cornwell she has a conversation with Laurel about this, trying to talk to her, and she says, "How does this war end?" And Laurel says, "It doesn't. Klingons have tasted your blood. Conquer us, or we will never relent."
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, were Klingons always like this brutal in Star Trek? Like, or is this kind of a new wrinkle?
Well, they've always been very warlike. In the original series, we got hints that they were ruthless. We got hints that they were a warrior species, but mostly they just came off as kind of crafty and dirty dealing and
Uh-huh.
underhanded. But as the movies came out and Next Gen came out, it became clear that yeah that they valued bloodshed, like that it was a core value of their culture. They're sort of a monoculture, and they're all warriors kind of thing. Like I hope that like someday we get a look at, well actually that's happened in other series, though. We've seen that, oh no, some of them are defense attorneys. Some of them actually have other things going on than just
Uh-huh.
being a warrior, but it's still sort of like at the core of who they are.
Yeah. We kind of have all these different conversations going on in this episode, because
Mhm.
you have also them trying to get this mycelial harvest and going on. And uh I liked in the Den of Geek review that they did. It says here that in what feels like a course correct for the show, the episode spends a fair amount of time and visual effects money reveling in the scene of scientific success. This isn't a victory in battle, it is the creation of new life. And after a season of torture, cannibalism, and murder, boy, did I need this.
Oh, that is a nice point. I like that.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've been sort of puzzling actually over that. Well, like, what are they doing? Like, where are they going with this? I felt like it was a setup, maybe a setup for something that might pay off in season two a little bit more. I don't
Uh-huh.
know, but
Well, I mean,
I was a little perplexed by it.
it's all to get to this planet, the Kronos, right?
Right, but I mean, they could have done some hand waving or something with it. They didn't have to do this big effects montage, right?
Yeah.
Which was really stunning and pretty and impressive. But it did puzzle me a little bit, and in terms of how it functions in the story. And I read a sort of derisive review that was like, oh, well, this is they're doing Genesis, but it's spores instead of a whole ecology. You remember
What?
Genesis, the
Yeah,
Genesis
yeah, yeah.
2 and 3.
Right, right.
But anyway,
Interesting.
and yeah, I can kind of see that, but I was still like, well, yeah, but they do have like, it's not. I don't dismiss it in that way, but um, I'm still kind of like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
And I like that's a nice way to put it. That it's
Yeah.
Star Trek Discovery being a little more Star Trek and a little less Star Wars.
Right. Exactly. There's it's a scene of hope. It's a moment of peace in all this conflict. So yeah, I liked it too, and I agree. I thought that was a really nice way to say it. So then you have some moments between Sarek and Burnham that it tells them they need to make brave choices. We are at war. Logic dictates that each hello may be the last. Do not regret loving someone, Michael. That's what Sarek says.
Yeah.
And that was a nice moment between them. And she does say, I just said goodbye to my father and it felt different. What do you think she meant by that?
I think she's afraid of losing everything. I think she's afraid of losing herself. I think she's afraid of having to martyr herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she has to hit that point, like any hero's journey story. The hero has to get to a point where he or she realizes that the quest will claim his life, as Galadriel says in Lord of the Rings, right? That they have to be willing to die, if not actually die.
Right. And I would imagine something that felt like a goodbye would feel a little different, would feel a little, even if it's not really in actuality. I think it was a chance for Sarek to say goodbye just in case, if that makes sense.
Right.
And leave some advice to his daughter. And so then we get another conversation between Burnham and Georgiou, where Georgiou says, this regret you have for what you couldn't do weakens you. Mm-hmm. So, that's interesting. Basically, that the fact that Burnham couldn't kill Georgiou again, that's sort of her fatal flaw or weakness in the eyes of Georgiou, which is mm-hmm. is interesting.
And in a weird way, I like how in this episode, though, or in this series, everybody in the Mirror Universe is kind of right, but in a way that you don't want to accept.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It would be so easy to just make them snarling, villains, like they belong in the Cobra Kai dojo, like no mercy, and it's so easy to just not like them in that way. But they keep saying things that kind of make sense.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good point. They're kind of they're the darker versions of ourselves, but they're not like.
But that doesn't mean there's no value in what they have to say.
Yeah. That's right. So then we do get a final. We get a meeting between Burnham and Ash. She says, "Who is Tyler? Was there ever really an Ash Tyler I fell in love with?" And he says, why are you the one to turn away from me? Because the person who killed your parents was Klingon and you fell in love with one. That was a pretty intense moment.
Yeah.
And
I think she's I'd like to see her down the line grapple with her prejudice a little more, because that's obviously there. Yeah,
it was a moment. I don't even know if she had really realized or had contemplated that was part of her feelings, dealing with her parents, and you know what I mean? I don't know if until he said that. And the actress did such a good job just sort of showing that kind of shock, and it was really good, I thought.
Yeah, it set her back on her heels for sure.
They were both really good in that scene, I think. A lot of good acting in this episode, I thought.
Yeah, the whole series, actually.
Yeah. So, and she says, I've got to, it's not easy letting you go. And then they're on their way to the Konos city or planet, and so that's this episode. And it was a good episode. There was a lot of interesting conversations, very dialogue based, which was very good, very interesting. So then we get to the finale. Will you take my hand? And so this one is very interesting, and I liked the quote that it says, "You will know fear because it speaks very fast and it speaks very loud." I thought that was very good.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's a lot between Giorgio and there's a lot of Giorgio in this episode. That, you know, she says, "Are you with me or against me?" She talks to Laurel at one point. "I can tell you require seasoning," that she says, which I thought was good. And then they have this fight between Giorgio and Laurel that I thought was pretty intense.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it a fight as much as a beating.
Yeah.
Yes. That whole first 20 minutes of that one made me sick to my stomach.
Okay. Yeah.
That was one of the reasons.
What way did it make you? What bothered you about it?
Well, because it was just so merciless and awful. Like it, and I could not believe they had put her in charge. I was really I was almost to the point where that you had gotten a few episodes ago where I was like, I don't know if I like this.
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, it was really sour. It did not sit well with me.
It was pretty dark. It was pretty.
But I was trying to hang in there and have faith that it was going to a good place.
Yeah, they accomplished. I couldn't believe how much they accomplished in this episode. Like I just felt like I can't believe in like 45 minutes they told so much story. It was pretty impressive, I thought. And because they end up getting to the Konos planet, and there's gambling and drugs and all kinds of stuff. And
this was cool. This was, as a fan, this was what was cool for me about going to Kronos was that like we've seen Kronos before as an establishing shot of like the High Council chamber.
But
that's it. Like, and okay, we got it in Into Darkness, I guess, a little. But like there were no people where they were. Like it wasn't a populated area.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's an Orion colony on the planet, which I thought was odd. I guess that makes sense. Like if there's dealings with them or if they've conquered them, you're going to find Orions. It's kind of like, you know, every major American city having a Chinatown or that kind of thing. But
it kind of reminded me a little bit of the casino planet in Last Jedi, a little bit.
Except this was way grungier, right? This wasn't glass. This was
That's true.
This was like the Mos Eisley spaceport, the wretched hive of scum and villainy, right? So
that's true. But it affects Burnham very much. She has all these flashbacks of the Klingons killing her parents, and she's just really struggling with seeing being on this planet with all these Klingons very much.
Yeah, they're way out of their comfort zone and way out of their depth.
Yeah. She tells Ash, she says, just now, all that laughter, brought back all these memories. And Ash says, how could you not hate them and me? And she says, it would be so much simpler if I could. So she's really struggling with her feelings with Ash, and it's just an interesting dynamic. And again, the actress is just so good in these scenes. And you have Tilly inhaling these vapors, and
that was fun.
Yeah, so that was a little bit of kind of comic relief, I guess.
Yeah,
sort of these things. And Giorgio has this like scene where she's getting this information, and it's not she's anyway, yeah,
pretty sensual
yeah.
that was a mature situation.
Yes, that's a good way to describe it. Mature situation. And so in Giorgio, she's trying to find they're trying to find this information about this hydro bomb
Uh-huh.
with the Klingons used, and they want to. They develop this plan to use the hydro bomb to destroy Kronos and to destroy this planet.
Oh yeah, not just hit. They're not there to hit. It turns out they're not just there to hit military targets. They're there to commit genocide.
Yeah. So and so then it becomes this kind of battle between between Burnham and Cromwell and some of the others who have decided gone down this path. And Cromwell says, "We do not have the luxury of principle. Believed our survival was more important than principles. I was wrong." Burnham says, "I believed our survival was more important than principles. I was wrong." And so I don't know. What do you think about that whole dynamic?
Yeah, no, it's very good. It's a good message. Someone on the Mission Log podcast, the Mission Log Live, where they talk about Discovery, someone called in and made a very good point that if the way principles work is if you aren't willing to die for them, they're not principles, they're preferences. And I've been mulling that over, and that's really good. Like, it's a really good insight. And that's exactly what the message of the episode is.
But also, like, it's kind of similar in a way to me in Wonder Woman, when that scene when the generals are sitting there, basically debating about thousands of people dying, and she's just like, what, like, how can you do this, how can you? And it's kind of similar to me in that way, because it's principles are easy to defend in a way when it is you who's having to make the sacrifice in a way, as opposed to other people that can be dispensable in a chilling kind of way.
Right. Yeah.
That we can sort of explain away a mass of people and forget that that's a mass of people.
Or get callous to it. Yeah.
Saru and others, the We Are Starfleet. That was a nice moment, I thought.
Yeah. I thought it was cool that Cornwell was kind of was like, you sure you want to do this here? And Michael's like, oh yeah, we are doing this here. Like, absolutely. Like, she takes this leadership role.
Yeah.
That she's grown into. And it's sort of an interesting mirror of the private conversation she has with Philippa Georgiou and the Vulcan Hello. It's a private conversation in the ready room, and there also Michael was being defiant towards her commanding officer, but she was wrong then. She's right now, and it's not in private; it's in public. So there were lots of wonderful little things like that where I thought they did some in this finale. They did some wonderful things to mirror or to bookend the series or the episode or the season. Yeah.
And so her and Georgiou have these words together. Burnham says to Georgiou finally when she's leaving, says, "Be good, Philippa, or you'll come after me. Make sure I don't have to." So that was good. And so I'm sure we're going to see her in the next season, which will be interesting, I would think.
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah. And Ash is also going with Georgiou, and he says, "I'm no good for either side, but maybe I can be good for both." So that was nice.
And he goes with L'Rell, is who he goes with.
Or L'Rell, sorry, yeah. Yes, I wrote that down wrong. I thought that was a nice kind of way for him to at least close out the season. It was a nice.
Indeed, yeah. I'm really glad that they didn't just kill him. Because I like the character. And he's a guy who can absolutely see both sides. So wow, what an interesting dude.
Yeah,
now he's gone through this.
Yeah, and I think it's I forgot to write down who said this, but he said, "Your capacity to love literally saved my life." I think that was Ash who said that.
Yeah, I think that's Ash line.
Yeah, that was good. And so then we get L'Rell after talking with Burnham and talking with all of this, she takes over the leadership in the Klingons and basically ends the war. So that was really, really cool. Did you buy that? Did you like it?
Oh, I'm a little iffy on it. It felt a little quick and pat and easy.
Okay.
It felt a little lazy in terms of the writing, but like I'm not in such a way that I'm disgusted.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty impressive for how things were just a couple episodes ago, that how much story they have told. And I mean, it's 15 episodes. Boy, they've told a lot of story. It's pretty
Oh
amazing.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, exactly. Usually, I mean, every other series has had like 20 odd episodes at least.
Yeah.
Season.
Amazing. So I could see that. I was okay with it. I bought it. But so then we basically, so the war's over. We get a really nice sort of happy ending with Cornwell and all of the everybody acknowledging all of the crew at Starfleet, and says that these were bleak times we cannot repeat or forget. And you have Burnham's record is now expunged, which is exciting for the future. And they said that the Surak tells her, the Federation is grateful to you as I am my daughter. That was a nice moment, especially considering what had happened in the previous episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed.
And let's see here.
I liked that. I liked that all through this series, but I'm thinking particularly of Cornwell and the Starfleet leadership, and what their horrible decision making in these last two episodes.
Yeah,
I like that. Like they didn't take it so far that it was like Admiral Marcus and Into Darkness, where they're just growling villains.
Yeah. Well, like
they're afraid for their very lives and everything they hold dear. So yeah, they're making bad decisions, but it's for a pretty good reason.
Well, and you have to also remember that Cornwell had literally had like the Klingons just kill thousands of Starfleet. So like,
yeah,
just war is a different situation than like a normal situation, And,
oh yeah, it's one thing to sort of talk theoreticals, and it's one thing for us to talk about these things in our very comfortable settings, right? Free of adversity. But in those kind of straits, you don't know what you would do. And I love how this show blurs the lines between hero and villain, and shows how very blurry and hard to see that line can be.
Yeah, and I thought this episode did a really good job sort of bringing back that like hope that is such an important part of Star Trek, and that I felt like was missing in those mirror episodes. It's like, oh no, they're going down this this joyless kind of hopeless sort of track, which I didn't want to see. And so yeah, there's hope even when people are sort of I think the hope means more when people are considering doing these bad things. I mean, again, to think of Wonder Woman, like her hope to me is more meaningful when she, like, it's one thing for everyone to be like her, but when she comes up against people that are contemplating different things, it means more, with it to me. And so I don't know, it's an interesting, beautiful thing. And
I think the optimism of Star Trek is more beautiful if you understand its opposite. If you understand and I think maybe that's what they're trying to do is weigh it down a little bit, so that like you understand this is how bad it could get. Okay, now let's go to season 2 and see how good it can get.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think that's very well said. And so yeah, we get this scene where Stamets, Tilly, and Saru are all honored, and they say that is who we are. This is the best of the best. And we end on a pretty epic note, I think, with a message from Captain Pike of the USS Enterprise.
Right.
And then we see it, which was pretty epic. What did you think?
Oh yeah, I lost it. I was so excited. I was fangirling, not even fanboying. I was fangirling. I was so excited, and they were so teasy too, with the way they NCC 17.
Yeah. Yeah. It was so good.
It was good fun. And I thought it was interesting because they definitely crossed over a very clear line, because of what I've been wondering about is like, and this is very, Trekkie, Trekland kind of stuff. Wondering whether, okay, so are they saying, forget about how things looked in the old show, they really looked like this, or are they saying, no, everything looked like it did in the old show, but we have to get there?
Yeah.
Because I've heard both, when this showed them clearly on the line of, no, everything looked better than it looked in the old show. This is how it really looked. Right, so they're kind of revising
I see what you're saying.
the original series. All right, because the Enterprise it's still very clearly recognizable as the Enterprise. Like it looks closer to the original series ship than the ones in the new movies or other iterations that we've seen. But it still has been changed. It's been altered. So like the bridge is going to look different. Maybe the uniforms are going to look different. We're not sure on that yet. And we don't know if we're even going to see any of that. So
yeah, it looked really good to me, and was just like very fun. And I don't know, I just thought,
now I'm going, shut up, take my money. Like send me the model right now. Like I must have it.
Yeah, it just made me so excited, and I felt like just so impressed with that they could end on this way, and that I thought for sure they would end on some kind of cliffhanger, and that we were gonna there was gonna be some kind of thing with Giorgio and Burnham or something like that, but like just the fact they were able to sort of tie everything up, and maybe it was a little too neat as far as the war, but like I don't know, I was just like I felt so positive about it after I saw it. I was just like, oh, this is great. And I let's start to talk about our feelings of this season as a whole real quick. That I just think it is so impressive. I did have that period where I was like, I don't know, but we worked through it, and it was worth it. And I just think the writing has been so on point. I think the acting has been excellent. I think it is so well made. It is cinema worthy for sure. And I just think it's like, when I watch the old Star Trek, there's some really great episodes, but some pretty boring episodes. I'm not gonna lie. And this, I don't remember a single episode me feeling bored. Like,
oh yeah, no, it moves.
Yeah. And I love the characters, and like I feel like anytime that I was sort of concerned about something, like I remember at the beginning being like, oh great, they gave up two diverse women captains, and now we get a white dude again. Like, why did they do that? I'm being frustrated about that. But then it all comes around, and it was all great. And so I just,
well, those first few episodes were so bamboozling. Like you're like, oh, well, this is who I should get used to. No, okay, they're dead now. What's happening? Like, it completely turns all your expectations as to how a Star Trek show proceeds.
Yeah. And it had emotion, it had heart. They were bold and did things I did not think they were gonna do, like with the doctor getting killed. That was so surprising to me.
Yeah.
I just love it. I think the show's great. I know that like purists complained about some of the timeline and some of the tone and some of the other things, but as the first Star Trek show that I've ever like really watched, from its initiation, I just love it. I think it's great. I think it's a great show, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. I mean, I never thought I would say, for me right now, I like the direction that Star Trek is going better than the direction the Star Wars is going, which is like shocking.
Whoa.
Not that I
Yeah,
hate
it
Star
is.
Wars. I'm fine. It's fine, but I like this better. I do.
Wow, interesting. Okay. Yeah, well, it is interesting because I read a great blog post that said both Star Wars and Star Trek are breaking their own molds a little bit. They're
Yeah.
breaking new ground.
Yeah.
And I think it's encouraging for both, but because you keep doing the same thing, you're going to lose your audience.
Right.
Uh,
I mean,
but
I just feel like anybody can relate to characters on this show, you know?
sure,
And
yeah.
not only does it include so many different cultures and sexualities and just all these different things, but just the
Well,
characters, like
personalities, yeah,
personalities. Yeah, you can just really relate to what Burnham is going through, what Ash is going through, or I don't know. I don't know. So impressed. Like,
You've
how
got
about you?
the cute, chirpy kind of junior officer and Tilly.
Yeah,
Got the biting Dr. House on the type on the ship in Stamets. You've got it's just a wonderful like chorus of personalities going on.
yeah. Like, I mean, since you're such a seasoned Star Trek fan, like, how do you feel about this first season compared to maybe other seasons, other series? What are your kind of takeaways?
Yeah, no, I think it's going in some cool directions. I have some hopes that having sort of had its shakedown cruise. I hope the Discovery moves in a somewhat more familiar direction next season.
Uh-huh.
And partly what I mean by that is I was annoyed by the mature situations and the gravity of them and the number of them. It just seemed a little gratuitous.
Yeah, it could be for sure.
I think it was a tad too R-rated. Well, part of it is as a father,
Yeah.
as a dad, I'm annoyed that I can't share it all with my son.
Right.
So I got a model of the Shenzhou in the mail the other day, and he's nuts for it. Like he absolutely loves it, and he's excited for it. But I can't let him watch it all. I'm annoyed that this generation, they're not quite getting it all.
Yeah, it's true. I agree with you there.
On the other hand, there's 72 hours of Star Trek TV to watch on Netflix at any time. So, it's not like they don't get any, but yeah.
Yeah, that's valid for sure. That's very true. And yeah, there were times when it was feel like we've got it. We've got the point, and now you pushed beyond what was needed to kind of prove your point, I think, for sure.
Yeah. I felt like the sexual situation, the way the sexuality was handled in the last episode was a little much. And they didn't have to do all that they did.
Right. Yeah, with Giorgio especially, that was not needed.
Yeah,
agreed. I do agree with you there. And I mean, I kind of hope that they make it a little bit more episodic in feel next season, because I really enjoyed like the time warp episode. That was still one of my favorites. I think that was so much fun. And I hope that they don't feel the need to like continually always be developing the story. Like we can have like these little episodes that kind of stand alone a little bit more sometimes. Because I love those kind of episodes.
Indeed, yeah, and I feel like we got a little bit of that, so that was nice, and but we still got a very I've never seen Star Trek deliberately spend a season on a story and do it this well.
Yeah,
they've tried it before, but it didn't go so hot.
Mm.
In Enterprise, this
Okay.
well, part of it is too is the scale was off. Like we were, the Star Trek TV was still becoming what it is now.
Yeah.
So like they were still dealing with like a 24 episode season, and they tried to stretch one story across that whole thing, and it just didn't work.
So are you curious for how they're going to involve the Enterprise, in the next season? Is that exciting for you?
Yeah. I mean, Captain Pike is fantastic. He's one of my favorite captains, and well, they're all my favorite. But I've always wanted to see more of him. Like I've always, and maybe that's what it is. My particular fan fanboyism with him is that
Uh-huh.
we don't get much of him. We get an
Yeah.
episode, maybe, or 3 episodes, but and in 2 of those he's a vegetable. So, yeah, I want to see more Pike.
Yeah, so that'll be really cool. That'll be really fun.
Oh, and
Uh,
I can't recommend enough. If you like to see Pike and the episode and the characters of Discovery together, read the novel Desperate Hours. It's a Discovery novel, and I'm in the midst of reading it. And Burnham and Spock hang out. You get the background on their story. It's fun. It's a good read. So
is it like canon or?
I think it is. Yeah, no, it is. It's not. Oh, well, wouldn't it be cool if? No, this takes place before the series.
Mm,
On the Shenzhou is the primary group of characters we're following, and yeah, it's good fun. So.
cool. All right. Well, good. Well, it's been a really fun thing to cover, and we'll have to talk about the next season once we get it. And I've really appreciated your insight. You definitely helped me keep going on the show at a number of different points. I really appreciate it.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
I'm glad all these hours of watching TV have turned out to be good for something.
Yeah. And hopefully you enjoyed the conversations too. It's been a lot of fun.
No, you've helped me appreciate it more. I like how talking about it helps us discover more insights that we hadn't thought of just after watching it. So
yeah, it really is great. So, well, thanks again. And so where can people find you?
On Twitter at Elmano Roboto, or my poetry inspired by Disneyland at Happy Place Poems.
Awesome. Yeah, and you can find me at Smuggling LDS Girl on social media and at Rachel's Reviews on iTunes and at YouTube. And over on my Hallmarkies podcast, we have been having just like an epic week. So check that out. We got to do 2 interviews and we posted 2 additional podcasts this week. So it was 4 in 1 week, which is pretty insane. I'm totally exhausted, but it's been awesome. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, check it out. I'm really proud of it. So, and I will be seeing Black Panther tomorrow, and I will have my review, and I will be doing my podcast with my friend Trevor from How to Love Comics next week. So lots of things to look forward to. And thanks again. I really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to season 2.
Yeah. Thanks, Rachel.